Hello and welcome to the Intentional Brief, your weekly video update on the one big thing in cybersecurity news for middle market companies, their investors, and management teams. I'm your host, Shay Colson, managing partner at Intentional Cybersecurity, and you can find us online at intentionalcyber.com. Today is Monday, May 11th, 2026. The war in Iran continues and the Strait of Hormuz is still closed. This week, however, we will shift things a little bit, change them up a little bit, and skip, I think for now, most of the AI talk and focus on a bit of what's a little bit more critical infrastructure news, especially for those of you in education or with kids in school, and that is the story about Canvas. News in the cyber realm last week was dominated by not one but two incidents at Instructure, the parent company of Canvas, whose learning management system, or LMS, is in use by over 9,000 schools and about 275 million students. And this may sound familiar, but you're likely confusing this for the breach at PowerSchool, which we covered on this show before, or before them, Illuminate Education. So again, not necessarily anything new, but it's the structure and the impact that I think is worth covering here. By way of background, last Thursday, Canvas parent company Instructure put Canvas by choice in maintenance mode, effectively taking it offline for all 9,000 schools, many of which are in the midst of finals week last week and this week here in the US. Reports confirmed that, quote, hackers claim to have stolen students' names, their personal email addresses, and messages sent between teachers and students. Ransomware gang ShinyHunters has claimed responsibility for the breach and shared with reporters a list of about 8,800 schools allegedly affected by the breach. Reporting from TechCrunch notes that they could not confirm whether all the listed institutions were affected, nor whether they are all Instructure customers, but that number sure seems to line up with the count that Instructure makes available on their own. Meanwhile, Canvas as a platform hunkered down, and in an apology posted late last week from their CEO on the incident update page noted that, quote, last week we made the call to get the facts right before speaking publicly. That instinct isn't wrong, but we got the balance wrong. We focused on fact finding and went quiet when you needed consistent updates. You've been clear about that, and it's fair feedback. We will change that moving forward, end quote. So what happened? Starting on about May 1st, Canvas had been investigating an incident, what they called unauthorized activity. They had an incident page that tracked a couple days worth of updates, noting that it was under control on May 6th, with their CISO posting, quote, Canvas is fully operational and we are not seeing any ongoing unauthorized activity, end quote. This will be our final update, he noted. Following that post, just a couple days later, ShinyHunters, who had threatened to release the stolen files if the ransom wasn't paid, defaced the login page of approximately 330 universities, showing a message, essentially kind of in the old school, you've been hacked way, when students tried to log in, that they had the data and they were demanding the ransom. The deadline, in fact, has not yet passed. It is tomorrow, May 12th. So we will see what happens, but that defacement is what led to the maintenance mode takedown, and reporting from Wired, who called this, quote, a new kind of ransomware debacle, end quote. We will see what happens in terms of the ransom, but I think it's worth noting that education is not defined as one of the 16 critical infrastructure sectors designated by CISA, the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, though they do work closely with their K-12 stakeholders. I don't know how much detail we'll get from the Canvas team here. They seem to still be in PR mode in terms of their event updates, but the rumor mill is churning around the initial point of attack being the Free for Teacher subplatform, which had some previously unknown vulnerabilities that were then used to leverage additional access via API and ultimately compromise credentials and steal additional data. Again, the details here remain fuzzy, but I think it's a safe assumption that in general we're going to see more and more news stories like this, more and more impacts like this, as these vulnerabilities, which exist today and are in the wild but are not known, are both discovered and weaponized very quickly. Yes, part of this will be driven by AI, but a lot of it is going to be driven by just the general kind of macro volatility and the fact that there's real money in this for the attackers. Again, I think from a defender's perspective, the basics around identity and authentication, least privilege, role-based access, auditing, logging, and alerting, and a general kind of diversity of defense and defense in depth approach are going to give you an opportunity to slow the attackers down, to make them noisy, and to give you a chance to respond. In terms of lessons learned from the response methods that the Instructure team used, I think it's probably worth getting your comms team involved sooner, or if you don't have a comms team, having a comms plan that lays out what, when, and how you're going to communicate in the midst of an event or an incident. Leaving these decisions as game time decisions is not a great strategy. From a fundraising perspective, back to more reasonable numbers for the past week with a little more than 12.5 billion, in newly committed capital, half of which was put up by THL Partners of Boston, who raised $6.35 billion for their 10th flagship buyout fund. We're sitting at nearly $150 billion in newly committed capital for the quarter, and I've given up trying to reconcile the market's behavior from a rationality perspective in this volatile macro environment. So it's a good reminder, I suppose, for all of us to stay focused on the things that we can control and keep building habits that keep us moving in the direction that we've chosen for ourselves. A reminder, you can find links to all the articles that we covered in the comment section below. You can find back issues and written transcripts of these videos at intentionalcyber.com, and we will see you next week for another edition of the Intentional Brief.